Hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth. Welcome to Atlanta Face and Body Center. Well, one of my focuses in founding Atlanta Face and Body was really to have a practice that would have a whole spectrum of offerings, from non-invasive to minimally invasive, all the way to surgical procedures, which is my area of expertise. I think one of the misconceptions people very often have about plastic surgery procedures is that it's just about vanity and superficial appearance. And there's so much more to it than that. It's really ultimately about how someone feels about themselves, about their personal self-esteem and confidence. What's most meaningful for me as a surgeon is not just the physical transformations that I can accomplish, but really seeing the difference that makes in somebody's life. There are aspects of beauty that are cross-cultural, and many of those things are deemed universal attractors. And what that means essentially is there's certain things that we all inherently view as more beautiful. Part of that is symmetry. Our brain finds symmetry pleasing. It's easy to process. People who resemble what we see on an everyday basis, we tend to automatically give a higher level of attractiveness. When you look at symmetry, the thought is that many of the people who are considered the most beautiful are considered that because they are unusually symmetric. Most of us have variable degrees of asymmetry. If you look at pictures, which is a technology we have here at Atlanta Face and Body, of two right sides of the face and two left sides of the face, they can look similar or they can look dramatically different. And so symmetry really in many ways is part of what is a universal attractor. And symmetry in many ways is something we find beautiful. The concepts of beauty, differ somewhat between the genders. In women, typically there's a concept of the triangle of youth. You have a wider upper face, narrower lower face. That's considered a universally attractive aspect to beauty. Large eyes that are well framed. I mean, every Disney movie you see, the heroine always has very large eyes. So that's considered an attractive feature and a universal attractor as well. Men, the facial shape is a little different. Men typically, it's going to be a square shape because it's going to have a stronger jawline. And they're going to tend to have a little more deep set eyes. And these are things that give a little more of a masculine appearance to the male face. One of the things that I find really interesting is the science behind beauty. And I don't think that's not something people always think of together, science and beauty. But beauty serves an important function. In our primitive brains, in nature, beauty is really a shortcut to gauge health. And we also tend to attribute positive qualities to attractiveness. And this is the so-called halo effect, the idea that beauty is good. That if we look at pictures of someone who's deemed more and less attractive, we're going to automatically contribute positive personality qualities, that they're more successful. And that's really where I think it's important to accept that, attractiveness matters. And looking your personal best is the most you can do, not only for how you feel about yourself, but for your ultimate success in your relationships and interaction with the world. What's interesting to me about first impression is that's really something that happens at a subconscious level in a matter of seconds. Little things, smile tends to make a more positive impression. Makeup can tend to make you look a little more youthful, frame the eyes more, things that can give a little more positive first impression. That percentage of increase in the positive first impression that you make steadily progresses as you go from simple things of that nature to Botox, to injectables, to surgical procedures. So it's not just looking in the mirror and changing how the person feels about themselves. That's probably the most important element, but it really can improve the first impression they make to others. I think the most fundamental aspect of attractiveness is really confidence. We all know people who just project that confidence from the minute they walk in the room, and that's an attractive quality in anyone. So anything that really boosts your self-esteem, boosts your confidence, is going to boost your attractiveness and ultimately, in a sense, your beauty. I think it's ultimately all about being the most beautiful you that you can be. My personal philosophy for the practice is the concept of beautifully you and aging beautifully. I think a lot of times we think about aging gracefully as aging naturally. But aging naturally can mean really not doing anything in terms of prevention or in terms of maintenance. And I think that's a path very few people take. You can age with grace in a way that's age appropriate, in a way that looks natural, so that you look beautiful at every decade of life. Whether it's prevention, whether it's early correction, whether it's ultimately at some point a surgical procedure, maintain that youthful, vital look as long as they can and as natural a look as possible. I want everyone who comes in to leave feeling more beautiful and that they are the best that they can personally be. With social media, there's much more awareness, our subtleties of our appearance. And I'll see a lot of younger people coming in really not liking the way their jaw and neck contour looks on social media. So these really can maybe be not so much aging changes as just their underlying anatomy. But there are ways with a minimally invasive procedure that I can contour the jawline and the neck and even contour the jowl, along with inducing some skin tightening effect, so that we're removing some of that volume, giving greater definition to the jawline and neck, and stimulating the collagen in the skin so we get a little bit of that shrink wrapping and tightening of the skin. So those can be great minimally invasive ways to really just emphasize the jawline and the neck and really update your profile, so to speak. When we get into our 30s, that's when you really start to see some of the earlier aging changes. Our faces tend to be fuller when we're younger in our 20s, and we start to lose a little bit of volume. You get a little more sculpted look to the cheek, and as that progresses, it can start to almost develop a little bit of hollowing under the eyes or a little grooving in this area. So really the mid-face is one of the earlier areas that we see signs of aging. And there are a lot of things that we can do early to help offset those. Injectables, for instance, which can last a year to 2 years depending on the injectable and where we place it, can make a significant and very subtle but very real difference in the hollowing and the shadowing that we can start to develop. They can give a tired look to the face and really just give a bright and refreshed appearance with something that's a non-invasive procedure. There's a lot we can do for the skin to help maintain that collagen stimulation process, whether that's microneedling, doing laser treatments, and if someone has more severe skin changes, doing maybe a CO2 or ablative laser treatment if they have a lot of sun damage. So there's a lot that you can do for your skin and for helping maintain kind of a youthful volume and highlights to the face in that decade of the 30s. So as we move into our 40s, we're going to start to see some progression of aging changes. In addition to some of the volume loss, now we may be starting to see more with wrinkling and some of the tissue descent. So we may at this point get a little bit more into corrective procedures. That may still be some facial contouring, like we talked about, to sculpt the jawline and the neck with minimal early changes. We may be able to do non-invasive treatments like Ulthera to help it be a non-surgical facelift, so to speak, or radiofrequency for skin tightening, with microneedling, chemical peels, laser treatments. So there's so much you can do for maintenance and to help maintain that healthy glow. And I think really the quality of the skin gives you a healthy look and really, I think, is a part of that first impression. Or if we have more significant laxity, we may move into actually looking at some lifting, whether that's mini lift or if there's significant changes in the neck, perhaps more of our signature lift. Even a subtle surgical rejuvenation really can have significant impact. When we're dealing with volume loss in the 40s, another option, in addition to injectables, may be considering doing some fat transfer. And in that instance, we take fat from the torso area, most typically the abdomen and the thighs, and use that to replace some of the fat volume that we lose in the cheek area. What I love about fat in the face is I think it looks very natural. It's very flexible. We can put it in multiple areas. And really, it's your own tissue. It integrates, it becomes you, and ages naturally with you. So if someone's, had several rounds of filler, or they have more significant volume loss, that can really be a great option for long-lasting results. So for patients in the decades of the 50s, 60s, ongoing, we're really just going to see further progression of those aging changes in terms of wrinkling in the skin, going from fine wrinkling to deeper wrinkling, progression of jowling, more neck laxity, more prominence of the muscle bands, and more hollowing and volume loss in areas like the cheek and the tear trough and even the temples. So we still have non-surgical options in terms of injectables, some of the other technologies we touched on, radiofrequency or Ulthera, that can make some subtle improvements. But we also at this point may be moving more into thinking about surgical procedures, such as a signature mini lift or a signature lift, and we're having more significant banding in the neck. And procedures like that combine very well with procedures for the eyelid. Maybe we're starting to get some drooping of the brow. We want to consider lifting the brow and opening up the eye and framing it better so that the eyes are really more visible and have more pop, so to speak, and helping to restore contour in the cheek. So we may start thinking more about fat grafting, something we will put a significant amount of volume in that's going to be long-lasting. And then ultimately for the skin, we still have non-ablative lasers, which are kind of our no-downtime lasers. But we may want to do a more significant skin resurfacing with a CO2 laser, where we're removing some of the damaged skin, inducing healing with new, fresh collagen and elastin. And then also from the heating effect, stimulating ongoing collagen and elastin improvement. The 50s is really a time moving more probably into minimally invasive and surgical procedures, but still focusing on those important aspects of maintenance as well. I see more and more men in my practice, and I think a lot of that is a lot of the stigma is gone from the idea of doing something to rejuvenate your appearance. And I also think men look at it sometimes in a very practical way as keeping that competitive edge. I see a lot of male patients who are remaining active in the workforce, and they're working with a lot of younger people, and they look at that as an important aspect of keeping themselves competitive. And really, there's a range of procedures that we can offer for men as well, whether it's injectables for deep lines and folds, Botox for kind of that intense angry expression that some people can feel that they get, and that people kind of ask them why they're angry or upset, and they're not. For the neck fullness, that's a very common complaint for my male patients. And if this is primarily fullness from fat, we have injectables such as Kybella that can permanently remove some of that fat. But if it's a more fat and neck laxity or combination, we can do some facial sculpting procedures like my precision lift or profile lift, or ultimately look at doing some lifting, either a signature neck lift or a signature men's lift. So I think it's very important, particularly with men, to help maintain that masculine look. And I think there's a lot that they see out there where overly aggressive surgery can almost feminize the face. And obviously that's a great concern. So one of my focuses with men is I think that's definitely a particular group where less is more. And we're going to focus on being conservative with the amount of fat that we remove. We want to kind of keep that masculine, deep-set eye, even when we're taking out skin on the upper eye. We want to maintain the lid position when we're taking out fat, and lower eyelid bags are a very common complaint for men. And also when we're sculpting the face or lifting the face, keeping that natural square shape with that strong masculine jaw. So again, it's all about looking natural and about not changing someone's to look like a different person with a different facial shape, but restore the facial shape that they had, maintain those and restore those youthful contours. So while one of my focuses with Atlanta Face and Body was really having a spectrum of offerings from non-invasive to surgical, One of my areas of unique experience is having done over 4,000 facelifts and thousands of additional facial procedures. And I think that experience really is important because I really want to use that to ultimately benefit my patients. General anesthesia is not something that's needed for the majority of facial procedures. And I think a lot of people come in to see me assume that they're going to be going to sleep. And that's a significant fear factor for them. A lot of people really are concerned about general anesthesia and the potential risks of that. So I think we're very often able to help eliminate some of those fear factors and put their minds at ease that we can do the procedure with them being very comfortable with a very mild to moderate form of relaxation between either relaxation with local or IV sedation, and maximize their safety and make their recovery as fast as possible. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Someone will be with you shortly.